My name is Tim Tates. I'm the site manager with the Vietnam Veteran Memorial Fund's Wall That Heals. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund is the nonprofit that was founded in 1979 to build a memorial on the National Mall to honor and remember everyone who served in the Vietnam War. We built that memorial and dedicated it in 1982, and were involved for a number of years after that. And in 1996, we looked around and realized that there were some other memorials that were traveling the country. And yet we felt that none of those memorials replicated the healing and sanctified nature that you had at the Wall That Heals. And we decided to put a memorial on the road that we would call the Wall That Heals. We went on the road for the first time in 1996, and we've been to over 700 communities throughout the nation, on into Canada, and even on to Ireland. So the Wall That Heals has never been to Hawaii. We've had interest over the years, but it's a tremendous endeavor to try to get a 53-foot trailer that weighs, 53,000 pounds over here and get a place to put it. And so we were approached over the last several years by a number of hosts. And last year, the host committee from Hilo came to us and said, we really think we can pull this off. And after months and months of courtship, they worked hard to prove to us that not only would the island of Hawaii be a tremendous place, but here in Hilo, with its proximity to the airports and the people that are here, the legacy that Hilo has to this island was truly the great place to put it. So in 2023, the average number of attendees that we had at a Wall That Heals stop was about 6,700 when we get to the continental United States. And that factors in all sorts of things. The high that we had last year was 17,000. Really and truly, one of the best stops that I've ever been at in the last 12 years was somewhere around 23,000. That's jamming 23,000 people through in 4 days. Now, here on the islands, we've got the opportunity to add an additional day. We've got a situation where no one has been and seen the Wall That Heals because we've never been here. But the reality is, no matter how many we might miss, no matter where the number is when we get done at the end of this, we look to the stories. Where is that Vietnam veteran who finally got to see the name of his battle buddy who died in his arm? Never got to see it before. We identified it and he got to go and touch it, take a rubbing of it. Where is that opportunity that will never be replicated, where Granddad sits there and points to the name of his battle buddy and says, remember on Memorial Day, we always say this, we always talk about him? Well, here's his name, here's his picture, and that's why we do it. And it brings it alive for that next generation. And it's because of the Wall That Heals being here, bringing in school kids where we're going to give them a tour. Kids don't get the opportunity to have tours anymore. They don't get to sit there and understand Vietnam because when they learn U.S. history, it usually ends about World War II. They miss out on Korea, they miss out on Vietnam, and anything after that. For 1 hour, they're going to get to come down here. They're going to get to learn about the Vietnam Memorial. They're going to get to learn about the Vietnam War and how this memorial and that war changed the way that we still deal with those who are serving today. Our men and women who went off to serve after September 11th went off in a different manner than those who went off to Vietnam. When they came home, they were greeted as heroes, and they still are today. And that is the legacy of this memorial and the Vietnam veterans. I've time and time again sat down with people who have had a father who was Vietnam age, and they said, I never learned this stuff. He's never talked about this stuff. But this being here in this community has opened him up, and he hasn't stopped talking about it since he knew it was coming in with the escort. We had to come down, and I'm pretty sure we're going to keep talking about it for days and weeks to come. We've done our job now. One of the unique things about the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund and the Wall That Heals is that we travel with a number of pieces of the exhibit. First off, we have a 3/4 scale replica of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. This is a replica in every sense of the word. It's 7.5 feet tall at the apex, it's 375 feet long from end to end, and it has all 58,281 names in the exact place you would see them at the wall in Washington, D.C. That's unique. None of the other traveling replicas get to see this. This is as if we brought this from Washington, D.C. and set it up here at the park. That's gonna come in a 53-foot trailer, and that trailer becomes a mobile museum. We call it the Mobile Education Center. with that trailer, we're able to show you a screen with all of those men from Hawaii who went to Vietnam and whose lives were lost. We're going to show you their name, we're going to show you their picture and where they can be found on the wall. But there's going to be people who are sitting there saying, well, wait a second, my uncle moved away to California, or he enlisted while he was in New York. They're going to be there, but we have an app that we can show all 58,281 names. We've got a picture. And so all those names that you've had swirling around in your head, they're going to be there and we can show that picture and then take you to the wall. But that monitor, a 6-foot screen, is going to show you all those from Hawaii. Next to it is going to be a monitor that has those who have been honored in the In Memory program. 3 screens that show the men from Hawaii who went to Vietnam, came home, and since their service in Vietnam have died. Thousands of them exist from this state. Thousands of them went there and came back to this and have died. But these are the ones that people finally said, hey, let's make sure that we honor and remember them. That next screen is going to have a 6-foot screen honoring their names, and we will have a full-scale replica of the In Memory plaque, just like the one you'd see in Washington, D.C., that helps memorialize them. So those 3 pieces, the Mobile Education Center with those screens, the wall, and then last is those display cabinets on the trailer that show some of the 400,000 items that have been left behind at the wall in Washington, D.C. You don't get to see those at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. You don't get to see them at another museum. You're going to see them here, and we can tell the stories of those things, and it helps illustrate and illuminate those people on what is this war about and those individuals who made so much. That in its entirety is this exhibit. You bring that in, and so on the 18th of January, that's going to arrive here by ship. It was loaded up in San Diego, it came over here, and it's going to be brought here into port. We're going to bring it into port, we're going to make sure it's all in good working order, unwrap it, get it ready. On the 22nd of January, we're going to go and have an escort around Hilo. It'll be that procession. Motorcyclists and others are going to join. For the Vietnam veterans in that escort, it's going to be their first time that they're going to get a welcome home ceremony. Their first time that they're going to be welcomed and thanked for their service. For the men and women who are on those panels that are in that trailer, it'll be the first time that Hawaii has the opportunity to welcome them home, thank them for their sacrifice. That'll culminate on the 22nd, that'll wrap it up, and we'll begin to set up that afternoon, that evening. The next day, on the 23rd, it'll take us the better part of 6 hours to set the entire thing up there in the park. It'll magically unfold, and when it's done, it's going to look exactly like the wall in Washington, D.C., with a few minor exceptions, but it's going to be as perfect as that wall. It's going to be as magical as that wall. And it'll be open from that afternoon all the way for 24 hours up until the time we take it down on the 28th. Now, the 24th is when we're going to have that setup. That 24th is when we're going to have the opening ceremony. We're going to be able to sit there and say, hey, we're going to have the ability that this is open. Remember, it's open the day before, but people like to have the opportunity to just say, it's here, it's open, let's do it. Night, what's going to be special is going to be probably one of the most majestic nights on the wall. The wall in itself, because this is unlike the wall in Washington, D.C., we only built this wall 7 years ago. We have the modern lights that we could make 7 years ago. We put the wall lights in at the wall in Washington, D.C. back in the mid-'80s. The best lights we could get were in the ground. These lights that we have are modern LED lights. This wall looks as great whether you're looking at a 3-inch section of the wall or we're looking at a 7.5-inch section of the wall. This wall is magical and everyone needs to come down and see it at night. What's going to be special is that we're going to do a ceremony honoring the men and women who came home and later died. We're going to keep the wall dark past sunset. The wall's going to be dark, and then we're going to have a ceremony. During that ceremony, people are going to be encouraged to attend. They're going to have the opportunity to have candles in their hand. They're going to walk forward to the wall, and the wall will be lit up orange in honor of those who have sacrificed and suffered from their maladies related to Agent Orange, in honor of those who have died of PTSD and all those things that have taken those Vietnam veterans from us. We know the Vietnam veterans who served in Vietnam live an average of 6 to 7 years shorter than those who didn't. Friday night's going to be our opportunity to honor them. Saturday, we're going to have the welcome home ceremony. We're going to give those men and women the opportunity to be welcomed home. We're going to give the opportunity to recognize these folks, and then those Vietnam veterans who are in our midst, they're going to be there as well. They're going to be there and thanked for their service in a way that they haven't been. Saturday is going to be that giant homecoming, that welcome home ceremony. But each and every day, there are going to be 3 of our teammates there and hundreds of volunteers who are going to make certain that when someone comes, they get greeted, they get answered, they get helped in a manner that they couldn't get at the wall in Washington, D.C. So that we can do that education, we can do that healing, and we can make certain that those from Hilo, those from Hawaii in general, have an experience unlike they'd ever get in Washington, D.C. And they can understand this war and the sacrifices of the men and women and their families who gave so much during the war. A couple things that I think everyone needs to realize is that whether you've been to the wall in Washington, D.C., or been to one of the other traveling walls, the wall that heals is unique. It's unique in the fact that it's a new era version of the wall. It's the majesty of the black granite, the reflectiveness of the black granite. It's the majesty of being able to sit there and do a rub-in and run your fingers across the panels. But it's new in the fact that we have those incredible lights on it that make it so beautiful at night. And out here on this shore with no other lights on, it's going to be one of those things that is just picture perfect. Of all the 33 stops that we have this year, this is going to have the opportunity to have some of the best photos. Whether you've been to the wall in Washington, D.C. or been to one of the other traveling walls, I guarantee you that you'll never have the experience to sit there and spend 45 minutes to an hour with us and learn about the Vietnam War, learn about the memorial and how that war and this memorial changed our nation. We sit there and realize, and you can sit there and say as a Vietnam era veteran or someone who lived Vietnam, heck, I know everything about Vietnam. You know what you saw and what you can recall. But let's take that all together and let's put it in a bow. And then let's show you how that affected this memorial and how the Vietnam generation and this memorial affected those who served afterwards. Those men and women who served after Vietnam. Our service was better because of the Vietnam veterans who took care of us while we were in uniform and because of our community who made a promise that said, never again will our nation forget the service and sacrifice of the men and women who are wearing the uniform. And that transformed our nation. We're then going to give you the legacy and show you the magic of the wall. There were a lot of people who hated the wall when it came out. There were a lot of people who thought it was too black, too stark, buried. We're going to tell you why it was that way. We're going to explain to you those pieces, and when you see that and have that unveiled, you're going to have a deep, deep appreciation for this memorial. This was the first memorial we built on the National Mall to everyone who served in a wartime period. But because of this memorial, we went on to develop a memorial for the Korean War, a memorial for World War II, and 100 years after World War I, finally a memorial to World War I. They've broken the ground for the memorial that'll be for the Persian Gulf, and they're working on fundraising and doing site selection for the post 9/11. Our nation builds memorials on the National Mall to honor and remember service and sacrifice. That's what this is all about. You have an opportunity for 5 days in your backyard to honor and remember the service and sacrifice and realize what our nation grew out of this war. It was a travesty to lose 58,281 men. It was a travesty to have 3 million go there and come back and die of the maladies that they had. But the Vietnamese people who have a chance at freedom have been transformed by that. And those generations who came back afterwards who were transformed by the Vietnam generation, those men and women who made such a contribution can truly be marked down as one of the greatest generations that give so much to those who came after.